Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badass.
Hey, good morning. I realize I need to move my microphone over.
Oh, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I am excited for Friday.
Yes.
Excited for the weekend. It's super sunny here, which is a nice change of pace.
Nice.
Yeah. How are you? You ready for the weekend? Ready for? Yeah.
Definitely ready for the weekend. It's going to be a really busy couple of months. Riley is doing aerial silks, and we're going to be practicing probably about 4 times a week for her performance. So we found out that she got 2 parts, by the way. And so I'm super excited for her. She has a major part. She is playing... so they're doing the Stranger Things, a part of their aerial silks, and she is playing the part of Henry. So if anybody knows, Henry was number 1, so it's all about 11, but she's playing number 1. She's also playing Robin. So she has like so many different parts that she is a part of. So I'm super excited about that. And I told her, I was like, oh, they told her, they were like, and Riley's the principal flyer. And she was like, what does that mean? And I'm like, you're the lead. I'm like, it means you're the lead in this particular
scene. Yeah.
And she's like, oh, and so she was like, oh, she's like, okay. And I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, I just don't like judgment. And I was like, well, who's judging you? And
Yeah.
it was just like, people are judging me. And I was like, really? I'm like, the only people really judging us is ourselves. And I'm like, and, what people do you think are negatively negatively judging you? And I'm like, and do those people matter?
Right.
So she's so sweet. But I know she'll do an amazing job. She's such a great athlete, and it takes so much strength to do what she does.
Yeah. It's going to be really great for her. And all of the, the community that comes with getting together and practicing something over and over and over again, it's very cool. And then to get to see it come together at the end. I mean, you were involved in theater, so you understand it, but I think it's going to be really cool for her to get to experience that.
Yeah, I really am glad because one, Ernest, thank you for joining us today. He said it really does take so much discipline. One, I love that aspect of it. I also love that she has 3 different teachers. So she's going to be learning from 3 different ones because they're choreographing the different scenes. But one of them, Mary Lee, she ended up just doing at the very beginning an exercise for people to, it was like a competition. It was just like different types of games and things like that for them to get to know each other, which I thought was really, really great. Instead of like immediately jumping into what it is you're going to do, because it allows them to bond a little bit. They're about to do an intimate scene together and things like that. So they need to get to know each other. And honestly, it goes very well into today's topic of the Law of Oneness.
Yes, it really does. Let's say good morning to some folks. We have Teresa's here. Good morning.
Good morning, Teresa. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we miss you.
We do.
Good morning, Kim. Yeah, I got to have a call with Kim this morning. And she's so lovely. And she's said, I am so looking forward to BOYBAS because it always just makes me so happy. So I am happy to see you here, as I knew you would be.
Yes. And we got J. Rowe.
Yes.
She said, sending good juju your way. Sending good juju your way as well. So Jennifer sent me a message this morning. She has some things, or her family has some things. So
Oh,
sending you guys, some white healing love for the things that are going on.
yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then Teresa also said, oops, I clicked on it. They usually do not matter. Go, Riley. You're going to do amazing. So thank you for that. And Carmen, Miss Carmen, coming in from California. And so good morning, my favorite beautiful badass queens today. We're queens today.
Woohoo! Queens. I love it. Thank you, Carmen.
Teresa said she misses us too.
Aw,
Aw.
miss you. Come in.
And
Come
then
back.
your wife is up.
She is. She is. She is. She was. So this is a little hilarious. I think I'll tell her. I'll tell the world. So usually I wake her up right with tea. Almost every morning I wake her up at a specific time. Like before a meeting I have, or she'll send a note like, try to wake me up around this time. And so on Fridays I just like wake her up right before I meet with you, right like before 8:30. Well, today I got out of the shower and she was awake and she texted me. And so I delivered her tea butt naked. We were the only people awake in the house. So I just went to make the tea and delivered it and was like, now I'm cold. I got to go get dressed, but I love you.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love Jenna's post. If you guys haven't seen it, it's about self-love. I loved that.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't?
I saw the picture, like she shared with me last night that she was going to do it, but I have not looked at it yet. So
yeah, somehow I was still up late at night and I saw her post. And so I gave her a comment about that. And it really goes into, today's topic as well, because we can't give what we don't have ourselves. And so when we think about the law of oneness, as we start to get into it, it really is about understanding more about yourself and being able to give what you need for yourself. And then that's when you are able to then continue to give to others as well.
Yeah,
that self-love aspect. Oh, we got more people coming. So coming from YouTube, Nervy Driver, glad for Friday, and you beautiful ladies. I'm trying to remember who that is. Do you remember who Nervy Driver is?
Yes, I think it's your mom. I'm not positive.
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought it was.
Oh, I don't know. You guys, you tell me who Nervy Driver is.
Yeah.
But that could make sense.
Yes.
She is a little bit of a nervous driver. Lisa says, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome, Lisa.
Happy Friday, Lisa.
Yeah, I saw one of her shows the other day. It was multiple people chatting about midlife crisis or about your midlife and some of the things going on there. So it was a good conversation. Jenna also said, happy Friday to me.
I think that was for the tea delivery.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I do want to share one other thing before we really get into it.
Yeah,
so this week, my husband called me on the phone, and I was on with someone else, and he started to tell me the story, and I was like, well, hang on, let me finish the conversation with this person, and I'll come back to you. So I came back to him, and my husband was given a new boss. And it is something I've been manifesting for him.
Right. Yes. I remember this. Okay.
And so it's not that this person isn't good in a different part of the company. He just wasn't in the right position.
Right. Yeah. That happens all the time. Yeah.
And so he has a new boss. We'll see, how that continues. But he was calling a fellow coworker of his that he knew had worked under that person. And the person ended up saying, like, the first words out of his mouth were, my wife and I are getting a divorce. And Jay was like, oh shit. And so he, started having a conversation with him, and and they had been married for 20 plus years. And he said that his wife, said that first and foremost, they need to make sure that they remain friends. And Jay said, that's really wise of her. And then he turned the topic and he said, he turns to me and he says, I don't want that to happen to us. And I thought it was the sweetest thing ever. And he said, I know that you really enjoy deeper conversations and you want that more with me. And he said, and I'm probably throwing myself under the bus. He goes, but I really did enjoy when we ended up going to, like, early on in our life, we went to a communication counts, it was like a weekend type thing. And he goes, I do think that we need to continue to nurture our relationship and do things like that. And I just thought that that was huge. That he was like, like, you mean a lot to me. I want to make sure that we're continuing to do what we need to do to take care of our relationship. And we have a great relationship. It also requires continuous work.
Right. Yeah.
And so I just really I felt really close to him in that moment. And so it also just fit again into today's topic of sort of the law of oneness, not only with the people that you surround yourself with and the people you're with, but also, today we're going to be talking about beyond, the people that we know and that are close to us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it starts close to you. Which I think is such a cool aspect to think about when you think about those ripple effects and everything that you can do when you really embrace the law of oneness. So
yeah,
we've got Bryce is here. Good morning, Bryce. Oh, I clicked it and you clicked it. I usually don't click, so I'll stay off of the clicking. Good morning, Bryce. It's lovely to see you. It's early for you, so I'm grateful that you chose to wake up with us.
Maybe he's just in bed, like, watching.
Yep.
And the nervy driver, I had no idea. That is my mom.
Yeah, I have a memory for that. Random things. Yeah.
And we have Divine.
Good
so
morning,
she said,
Divine.
hello, everyone. And so she's coming in. She said that conversation was destined. Oh,
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm super proud of Jay.
Yeah, I'm super proud of Jay. I mean, that is a deep connection, for a guy that really likes to stay, a little more surface, a little more goofy, a little more charming, for him to see that connection and to think, that would be terrible. I don't want that for us. I want to do whatever it takes to meet you where you need to be met. That's awesome. And you both deserve that, right?
I know.
So I love that.
Yep. I loved it as well. And Eric's joining us. He said, good badass morning. Yeah. And I see a lot of people. So the number up above always shows us who's joining us from YouTube. And we have a lot of more people coming to us today through YouTube. So welcome. Let us know that you are here. So be sure to let us know you're here. Let us know if we're having any internet issues. I had a talking to my provider, and I'm hoping that things are better. We did up the service, and they even brought me a new router and things like that. So I'm hoping
you got it fixed fairly fast. I mean, she had them out there within the week. I'll have you know. So, because that was just last week that you were having all those issues. So
right. I mean, we're paying the top tier. Like, come on.
Yeah. Right. Yep, I deserve that.
Oh, she said, Jay, talk about oneness when he saw that connection in someone else. Yes.
Yep.
And that really is, so I guess maybe let's dive into, into the law of oneness. That really is a good segue into the topic because, as a reminder, we talked about it, what the law of oneness is, and the law of oneness teaches that everyone and everything is connected, and what others think or do affect your life, even if you don't know them. And there is only one energy and one mind, which I think is a little bit mind-blowing when people really think about that. So think about all the people that you know in your life. Think about all the people you don't even know in your life. And when we think about it, we are really all connected. We are one energy, one mind, meaning that we are part of a greater whole. And we can positively influence ourselves by positively impacting others. And if someone has something you want, it means it would also be a part of your reality. So feeling excited instead of jealous.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the law of oneness has, for me, like a lot of really cool layers, right? So like, you the people you immediately surround yourself with, or your family or your local community, you know, when you see the impact you can have on your family members, or someone you work with, or people that you are interacting with on a daily basis, it's a really cool way to see oneness, right?
Mhm.
Like, because and you can often see the impact, a little quicker, right? Because it's right in front of you. But
Yeah.
then, when you picture yourself as a part of a larger entity, as a part of a huge, um, tapestry, or piece of fabric. I think Megan and Jenna are talking about that in the comments. That I think that might be Megan. I love this. I look at the separations between us like a tear in fabric. When you start to sew it back together, you start where the edges are closest together, and you work up to bringing the widest gaps closed.
Love it.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what we're talking about. So you can start close and broaden your thinking, to the whole human race, to all of kind of humanity and the universe, and all of the particles and energy that are there, which, we could talk a little bit about that science, kind of behind it, and energy fields and frequencies. I know that you love thinking about how amazing our hearts are, and the frequency, that they can emit.
Yeah. Yeah, and when, one of the best analogies that I've heard recently, and this is actually from Rick Julian, who will be joining us later on. He's actually going to be talking to us about the law of gender later on in the year. But one of the things that I heard recently that just made me think is, think about your life and think about it. You're looking through a straw. And that straw is your perspective and are the things that you are seeing. Now imagine that straw is bigger. It's getting bigger, and you're starting to see more of the connectedness. So, maybe you were zeroed in on a bee, and all you could see was the bee. And then as you start to see more, you start to see how the bee impacts as they're going into a flower on the pollen. And then as those things continue to expand, the things that then, the circle of life, all of the different things that impact each other. But I think the biggest thing that happens with us is that we don't always open that straw. We don't always look beyond our life and the things that are going on with us. We really need to take more of a moment to step back and understand that there's a lot we don't know. And
Yeah.
a good example of this is when you grow up in a particular city and a state, and that is all that you know. When I moved to Georgia, I started to learn about a lot of other things. When I started to go and travel to, Italy, to France, you started to gain different perspectives. You're like, oh, and so as you start to talk more beyond your circle, the more you start to widen your perspective and your understanding of not only of people, but also of the universe. And so I guess my biggest question for people would be, what are the things that you're doing, related to understanding more about the world? And maybe, Kate, we go into this one, because I think this question goes well into it. How does our ego get in the way of interconnectedness? And so
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about that straw, right? Or you think about, what we're kind of inclined to do as humans is to see what's right in front of us. What's, what we can control, who we are. And a lot of that has to do with our ego,
Mhm.
what we're thinking, what we're wanting, it's very ego driven. It's very self-centric. It's very, self-centered. And that can, if you're being motivated by the things you can see and touch and do for yourself, that's your ego kind of driving the ship there, right? But when you look beyond and you look broader, when you take that straw and expand it, that's a view of interconnectedness. And I think the goal, if you want to live more according to the law of oneness, would be to make sure that you are regularly kind of checking your ego and keeping it in place and in the background rather than the foreground, so that you can truly see that we are all one. And Jenna's right, it goes beyond just the human race, animals, plants, everything, the entire earth, the entire universe. And the science behind it is real. We are all made up of the same exact materials. We're all made up of atoms. The wood, my desk, everything is made up of the same exact thing. And so how can we not be interconnected when you think about what the foundation of existence is?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to say hello to a couple more people. So Kelly coming in, she said, good morning. She's
Good
actually
morning.
going to be a speaker for us on the law of action. So in March, if I remember correctly. And so thank you for coming in, Kelly. Divine also says, yes, one band, one sound, one energy, one mind.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think when you think about some of the most amazing performances you've ever seen, it is when we have that connectedness. I mean, I just got goosebumps just thinking about like a group that is dancing together and like the most amazing choreography of like how in sync they are. You just get a tingling, a part of you, and how amazing that feels. And so when you think about that and in just our interaction with other people, think about that tinglingness that can happen with being connected. And I told Cate this, that I feel that with the team that I have. And I was talking with Joel yesterday, and we're dealing with a challenge at work. And he is so detail oriented. He was bringing me all of this stuff. And I just stopped and I said, Joel, I said, do you realize how much I love the fact that you're on my team? And he was like, I said, I love the fact that you're so detail oriented. You're able to bring this stuff to me. And then I'm able to, use my strength of, I'm a person that's willing to have the hard conversations. And he stopped and he goes, no, I love that. He goes, because I love that you're willing to have those conversations. He's like, I do all of the work, the details and things like that. But we talk about those types of
Right.
things in understanding the greatness that we all have. But when we really start to meld and we become, like everybody, you don't even sometimes have to communicate. It becomes almost like a telepathy type thing. Like everybody knows the part that they play and they just, we
Right.
start working together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and that is, we all have our individual identities. We all have our strengths. And the beauty is when, those cogs start to work together, and accomplish something amazing. And so we do that in our own teams if we surround ourselves, or our own families if we surround ourselves with, it's not just with the people that fit, but it's with understanding that we can all play a part. And even if we have a lot of similarities or we have differences, there's still this oneness that you can embrace if you choose to. And that's a huge part of this too. So recognizing and thinking about ways that we can view oneness is very cool, right? But at the next step is making a choice to regularly make it a part of your life, right? So, so like the visual, Ernest says, he loved that visual of mending, that Megan brought up and Jenna about the tapestry. That's a choice, right? So to actively want to create cohesiveness, to make that mending happen, it's a choice. And so there's all sorts of ways that we can actively choose to see the otherness in someone as a good thing rather than a bad thing, right?
Yeah. Maybe I can pull up this next question. So, when I have this one done a little bit differently, it's going to scroll around the bottom. But how can I show more compassion and acceptance towards those I don't understand? So when we start to look at the law of oneness, it's really about how can I show more compassion and acceptance? And a lot of times it's really understanding when you're in that conversation or when you're about to be in a conversation, it's sometimes stopping and reflecting. And I know, Cate, you've seen, this is something I deliberately, because I'm such a, sometimes I like immediately, like, here's my initial thought, those types of things. I will step back and I'll be like, nope, step back, try to, look at things, and try to do things. And I will say, I'll try to have this conversation in love. Now, keep in mind, not everybody's going to still, accept it, is still going to, they might still have their own perception or things like that still make the conversation combative. But if you do your best in trying to come at the communication in love, it really can make an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can, I'm all about tools and I love frameworks.
Yep.
So you can actively remind yourself, you can kind of make it a rule, like I have a rule that, in my mind, and it's hard to follow sometimes, obviously, but my rule is, that if I become dysregulated in any way, to try to pause, stop for a moment, and then reset my intention or recognize who I'm speaking with, or recognize the impact I can have in this conversation, for instance, if we're talking about a conflict or a dialogue, right? Mm-hmm. By just taking that mindful approach to say, I'm going to move forward with respect and love, that allows me to actually be able to actively listen, to work hard not to interrupt. So I'm, not formulating my response while they're speaking. I'm literally mindful during that moment. And I will have these new understandings. I'll have like these little mini breakthroughs just because I decided to use a different path in that moment, and you have to do that intentionally. It just doesn't happen. Our natural, maybe this isn't the way it is for everyone else, but the natural inclination that I often have is to say like, fuck you. No, I did not, like, no, and I have to actively remind myself that, that is my ego. That is something else, that isn't my reality. And it's certainly not the compassion I want to be putting out into the world. Right.
Yeah. And it's, so I want to just understand from other people, how can you show more compassion, acceptance? And I love the frameworks that you're giving, Cate, just because it allows us and reminds us. And I feel like half of it is just reminding ourselves that we need to take a moment to acknowledge things. And I'm going to pull up a couple of things. And so Divine said, yes, speak with compassionate words first before giving advice and offering. And so Divine, you're making me reflect on our conversation last night. I'm like, okay, did I immediately probably went into the offering
Problem solving.
yeah, because that's my go-to. I'm like, oh, have you thought about this? That type of thing. So hopefully I was also compassionate in that conversation as well. And she also said the more grace and love I gave to myself and felt my feelings, the more I was able to do for others.
Yeah, Jenna mentioned that as well. I'm going to quick pull hers up. She said,
yeah,
thank you for the shout out in that post, Sarah. You're so completely right about needing to love yourself in order to give that love to others. And that is oneness.
Yeah.
So that is the way that you can still be self-centered, right? So like, that's not about your ego. Loving yourself and all of your dark parts and all of the things that might scare you or scare you, that might be filled with fear. You love those parts anyway. You love who you are. And it's so much easier than to love others, right? Because you're not carrying that shame forward. You're not carrying that fear forward. That's not ego, at all.
Yeah, when you're doing it, and you can really feel the difference, because I think, when ego comes from your head, so you can almost feel it, like, is this something in my head or am I feeling it in my heart? Because oneness or leading with your heart is, are you, where are you feeling this? And so, thank you for the confirmation, because I did feel like that was coming from my heart whenever I was talking with Divine. I was like, no, that is coming from, like, I want to, to help you to understand some of the things that I might know, and I would like to be able to help you, in this type of ways. So she said, she knows my heart. And so it's really understanding that, am I feeling it in my heart, or is it ego driven and it's really coming from my head? But I really love what you said, Jenna, about the self-love as well, because I think that a lot of times the challenge that we run into is when we get into conflicts with people, sometimes it has nothing to do with that other person. It has to do with us. And it has to do with, like, are we giving ourselves love? Or are we wanting it from someone else instead? And so when we really take time to love ourselves and give grace to ourselves and all of the things that we want other people to give to us, if we take the time to give it to ourselves, we then don't need it. We're now in a loving place where we can then give it freely to other people, because we've already given it freely to ourselves.
Yes. And it seems it's silly, or I'm taking a weird path here. But if you are a person that enjoys tattoos, I highly suggest you tattoo it on yourself somewhere, because it is like the best reminder ever in life. And it's always applicable. So like, I want to start a movement where people are tattooing self-love on themselves, because I just think you can never go wrong. Like if that's always the right message, because it's so super important. So like, Jenna has it on her, I have it on me, Oscar has it on his knuckles, like, so instead, how Ben will have badass things on their knuckles, Oscar has self-love on his knuckles. I would love to see more people do it, because it's just such a great reminder.
Now I will commit to this. If I ever get a tattoo, I do think it'll probably be self-love, or I told her it would be you, not them, or let them. And I also promise that if I get a tattoo, I will do it with you guys. Like I have to have you guys around, but I'm not sure that I want to get a tattoo. So
right. Yeah. Sarah's of the opinion, like, why would I intentionally put myself through pain? Like, she loves herself that much.
Oh gosh.
But Teresa said, I want to be there. Yeah, we would have a huge party. We'd have to probably live stream it.
Oh my God, that'd be crazy. Carrie's joining us. She said, late to the party, but happy to be here today. We're happy that you are here with us as well. And so go ahead.
No, jump in.
Oh, I was just going to say, so as an action item, I think it's setting the intention in the conversation, in the things that you do. That is really the framework of, am I setting intention to be compassionate? Am I setting the intention to be in a place where I'm giving compassion, those types of things. And I also really do love even the little things that we can do. So think about, for me, the law of oneness is also how you can make other people's lives better, even with like the smallest thing. Like imagine, when you get something in the mail and someone thought of you, it's like, oh gosh, that feels so good. Or just smiling at someone, or letting someone in front of you as you're driving, people are like, oh, thank you for not being an asshole, that type of thing. And just little things like we always do this during Christmas time. But think about right now, people that are delivering stuff to your door, leaving out a package for them, or, buying the person behind you as you're going up, buying something, their meal or things like that. Think about how that starts to build, the impact. And so really it's about the ripple effect. The moment you do something, the moment that next person feels good, and then you have a good chance of that person, then doing it for someone else, and then the ripple effects that happen. That is really what the law of oneness is the collective aspect, or the ripple effects that happen.
Yes, 100%. I've that intention of making the world in just really small increments a slightly better place, surprising people with things that they didn't know were coming, and how good that can feel. I think it's a beautiful thing, and model it. Every time you do that, there's this whole like pay it forward thing, right? But every time you do that, someone might be inspired to do it to someone else, and model it to your children, right? It's the coolest thing for Jenna and I to see is our kids, when our kids get generous, right? And as they grow, where it gets bigger and they have this bigger impact, every time Lucas babysits, he goes out of his way. If he's leaving his job at Quick Trip, he buys snacks for his siblings, just with his own money, just to say, like, I'm thinking of you, or, you have been so helpful while I'm babysitting, so I wanted to get you this Kit Kat or whatever, super sweet. And no one tells him to do it. He just does it. Right. And Oscar has bought groceries for a woman who was ahead of him in Walmart and was struggling to find the change. And he just, did it and called us and right away said, you know what, I channeled you guys today. I was in line, because he knows how generous we are. That ripple effect, I know started with us, and that's amazing. And you can do that. You can do that with the people around you that don't even know you. You can do that with your kids. So I love that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, just starts with us not being jerks. Just happy, just being happy, right? Yeah. Just, imagine when you get in, even in our day-to-day, like we get into a Zoom call, it's a total game changer if you're on with somebody who smiles at you.
Yep.
Like, hey, yeah, I know we're here to talk about business, or we're here to talk about something that's not fun or whatever, but we're still two people, connecting.
I also do have to say, Kate, you are great for that, because you are also the ripple effect that happens even within our company. Because think about it. And I was thinking about this because We're going to be getting an award. I'll just say that. And I'm going to be doing a fireside chat. But one of the things that I was thinking about was the ripple effect that we have within our company. Why is it that we're getting this award? Well, it starts with Cate. Like Cate's infectious energy when she starts with a prospect, and they just love the feel that they get. They feel seen, they feel heard, all of those types of things. And then it goes on to Bryce, who has just an amazing personality as well. And so, this is one of the things I'm going to be talking about during my fireside chat, is the reason that we're so good is really because every time we join meetings, we like to have fun. Like, we don't want to be like, okay, let's get down to business every time. We like to be able to joke. People like people that make them feel good. That's why people want to come work with us and for us, both of those types of things. So think about that in your own job. Like, if you don't like your job right now, what are you doing to then impact the people that are next to you? So we can impact, one person can impact things. We're going to be having Jennifer Lacey joining us next week on this topic, and she's going to talk about how her as one person started a ripple effect within a company. So you can set the intention and do the things to start the ripple effect.
Yeah. And it's as easy as just oftentimes being yourself. Yeah. Big puss energy. I love when she calls me that. It's amazing. That you have, you can just start it with a smile and with intention and with a human connection. There's no secret magic to how I sell or how I form these relationships, other than I'm super authentic and I genuinely care. And I make sure they know that. I find ways to make sure that they know that we are different than everyone else in the industry. And there's a reason why you will fit here, or there's a reason why you won't, and it's your prerogative. The other thing I think that I want to bring up is that setting that intention and choosing to do something different than you may have in the past can be thought of in the terms of diversity as well. So, oneness, we are all one, but yet there are differences in who we are, and we talked about that already, about what we bring to the table and how those gears fit together.
Yep.
But one of the ways to see yourself as a part of the bigger collective is to understand the differences and to celebrate them, and to do so with intention. So, if you aren't regularly investigating or understanding or celebrating a different culture, or trying to understand different traditions, or, I invite you to do so, because it broadens your view. It broadens, it brings so much more joy to your life to understand and to just have the knowledge of how a whole different group of people can experience something different than you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I know that right now there's a lot of talk about DEI. I add the and B because it's about belonging. I love that they added that. And I think that with everything, there is a light and dark side to everything. So when we go back to the intent of DEI and B, it isn't about replacing people with a different type of, person. It's about the fact that there were people that weren't at the table. And it's making sure that we're inviting them to the table. It's not eliminating other people that were at the table either. It's really about making sure that understanding that we sometimes will learn bias along the way. And we also need to be conscientious of that and set the intention of, am I thinking beyond the people that I'm immediately drawn to? Am I looking beyond, the normal people that I tend to want to communicate with? So that's really, to me, what DEI and B is about, is making sure that you realize that when you're seeking individuals, and this is something that Cate and I have been very conscientious about. We try to look for people that are not like us. So we look for different types of speakers that we're going to bring on. We know that we tend to get drawn to certain groups, each of us, but we look for like, okay, well, let's look for a different, type of person. Who do we know? And we continue to look beyond. So as you start to look, as we're doing this year, we're trying to include different types of people along the way, because it's a very conscientious effort on our part to make sure that we're hearing from different perspectives. And it goes back to that straw. Are you only going to listen to the straw, aspect of things, or are you going to widen and understand different perspectives and things?
Right. I think this is Megan. She said, make your straw bigger. Absolutely. And I think when we think about these efforts within corporations or businesses to focus on DEI and be the way that in my belief, the way that it is done best, and I know you're in agreement, Sarah, is that I understand the desire to correct past wrongs, but it's really done best when it's proactive, when it is from the very beginning. The past is a past. We can't correct it. We can't let go of an older white gentleman because we want to hire a younger Black gentleman. That is already done, and that person is likely still making a contribution no matter, even though their skin is white. But moving forward, the next time there is a position, let's make sure that we are opening the door for all types of candidates, and we are hiring the best individual for the job, no matter if they have a disability, no matter if they have a mental health issue, or their skin, is different, or they're a part of a different type of minority group, right? Yeah. But those types of things are done best with the same intention that we've been talking about. Yeah. That doing it proactively, making it a part of how you act and behave, that's the key.
Yeah. I think the other side of that as well is that sometimes people will say, well, we're not excluding people. And I'm like, okay, but are you actually widening that straw to look beyond the types of people that you normally would look for too? Like there has to be, again, intention there of looking beyond. So you can't just say like, well, we don't exclude, when you also don't proactively have an intention to do something different as well.
Right. Yeah. And another huge element of oneness that I think we often forget is forgiveness, right? So in order to feel as though you are one, you have to forgive the wrongs, at some point, there's always a balance, right? Because we need to protect ourselves. We need to set boundaries. We need to be careful, but we can do so with forgiveness in mind, where it's still you're not harboring bad intentions for someone. You're not like poisoning your own spirit by holding on to anger and frustration. You don't have to have, I'll just be honest, I struggle significantly with spending time with people that have opposite political beliefs of me. I struggle with that, and Jim is much better at it than I am. And I have to let go of that fact sometimes and know that, I can't change them. I can just, sure, I can keep up a boundary to make sure I don't get into conversation with them, or I can do things to avoid the conflicts, but to carry around like disgust for them, which is what I used to do, that doesn't serve me. And so there's this element of forgiveness there too.
I agree. I mean, you can have a boundary in love. So it's ultimately about protecting, what's best for you. And and deep down what you can handle, what you can't handle. You need to honor that, because ultimately, if you don't and you start to go down a spiral, that's not helping the universe either. That's not helping the collective. So for me, it is about first understanding what you can handle. And if setting up that boundary of, like, hey, we're not going to talk political, if that's the boundary that you have to set because you're not at a place where you can have those conversations, or that the conversation, has always spiraled and gone into a negative, it's like, okay, like, this isn't good for either of us. This isn't good for everything overall. Until we figure out how to resolve this, it's probably better for us not to talk about this particular type of topic. So it's being, again, setting intentions and understanding you're doing it for the greater good, not only for yourself, but for that other person and for the collective as well. And so I do want to circle back, if I can, on sort of the bias. I wanted to tell a little bit of a story, if I could. So I was very intentional with my daughter growing up. I did not describe people based on like what they looked like. I did not say like, did she have red hair? Was she black? Did she, I didn't do any of those types of things. I was very deliberate because I wanted to run like a little bit of an exercise and use my daughter as sort of a guinea pig in some ways, just to sort of see when is it that the perspective starts to change. And I can tell you it started like in 5th grade, 6th grade, like middle school time frame. So every time I would ask my daughter, I'd be like, oh, tell me about them. So she would be describing a particular person, and I would just say, describe them. And it was fascinating to me how she would describe people. She would be like, oh, he's really good at the monkey bars, or, she's, super fast, or, like all of these, different types of descriptions. She never described them by how they actually looked. And I found that fascinating. So I was like, wow, this really is a taught thing when we think about it. So think about the things that you're being taught, and also the things that you are continuing to perpetuate as well. So I had this conversation. I told my daughter I was going to be talking about this topic, and I let her know that I had used her a little bit as a guinea pig. And she was like, wow. She was like, so when did I switch? Like, when did I start doing that? And I said, when you started to get around other people, and that is how they started to describe people, you then started to describe people like that. So I was bringing forth that information to her, so she knew that she had been influenced by other people that were around her. But that isn't how she was when she was younger. And it was just fascinating to me, because I would stay in mystery. And I'd be like, I wonder what this person actually looks like, but I would wait and I'd be like, show me so-and-so, And so I would never go, like I'd be looking for all the redheads or whatever, it's because I didn't know in what it was. So I was like, it could be anybody in here.
I love it. That's so cool. I love it. And there's this interesting balance, right, that we have to find. And I think if your barometer is love, then that's what helps you find that balance, right? Because in one hand we say, think of everyone as the same. Don't think of them by the way that they look, right? Because that's a difference, and we need to just think of them as human and as more than what they appear on the outside. Yeah. But at the same token, we also want to see different perspectives and embrace differences, right? Yep. So those two things are not in conflict with each other. They really aren't. They both are brought. They're both there because of a love and a desire to see the oneness around us, right? But I think sometimes people think that they are in conflict with each other, or that they are, or that they can end up being a bad thing because of them maybe being corrective, or being, or the whole notion of, your position in life is what is dictating your success versus not,
Yeah.
Um,
And I get I get the understanding or the labels that sometimes people will, give themselves. Because one, sometimes we need to make sense of like, am I like someone else? Or, even like when we think about health, is someone else experiencing what it is we're going through? So sometimes the label is helpful because you don't want to feel alone. So it's the connectiveness that you're seeking. The dark side of that is that sometimes we become the label. We become those things. So if, as an example, if I say I have ADHD, and I become known as the ADHD person, what type of limitations am I also setting upon myself? I'm also saying that I can't go beyond this label as well. So I understand the need for the label in knowing and connecting with people. I guess from a oneness perspective, I wonder if we also are limiting ourselves in ways that we, also can move beyond that label and see ourselves in other lights as well.
Yeah, I think this comes back to, I've thought about this a few different times too, because for me, labels have been a big part of my identity, right? Because I grew up and in a time when it wasn't as embraced to be a lesbian, so
Right.
I had to figure out, first of all, to figure out what I was, and then I had to love myself through it, and I had to also go about this life I wanted to create where, well, no, I want a huge family. I want a wife. I want all the things that everybody else I see is getting, but I'm a little different, right? Getting it in a different way. And so that identity at the time really helped me feel some belonging and also process, who I was and what I was.
Yeah.
But what I think what it boils down to, like I always thought, well, because there's this balance, the label can help you as you're defining yourself or processing through it.
Yeah.
But then when you only see yourself in that one way, it can actually have a darker intention, right? Or be kind of bad for you. I think you have to listen to your gut. Your intuition knows when it's time to kind of release yourself from a label that maybe at some point helped you feel less alone.
Mm-hmm.
But now, you're ready to move past it. I feel that way with my mental health diagnosis too. Like I needed that definition. I needed to understand that what I have been struggling with my whole life had a name, others have it, and we have tools to help it. But now that I am I've recovered from it and I'm on the other side of it, and I've healed, I don't need it as much anymore. I can use it to show others that, hey, if you have this, you can get over it and look where I've come, but it's not all that I am. So I think, I invite you to listen to your gut, and your intuition will know when it's time to kind of release yourself from that.
Yeah, beautifully said. I love that. And I know that I remember past conversations, like when we first started this, I remember saying some of these things to you and you were like, whoa, like, wait a minute. I remember when we did the labels one, you were like, okay, like I felt like I was challenging some of the beliefs or some of the things that you had, but you really like self-reflected. You were like, oh, yeah, on some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard for me to look at an entire system that can be built on systemic racism and still see a oneness because the scales weren't fair, right? But what you did help me to see is that the only way to make it fair, yes, we have to recognize it, and yes, we have to process it, but to make it fair is to move forward in a different path, and to not see anyone, not to see the anything other than through a lens of love moving forward.
Yeah, because when we start to do that and we just look at things from love, it's not recognizing and acknowledging, because we do need to do that. Like that has to happen first. Like I acknowledge all of this shit. We also have to figure out how we're going to get to the next place.
Right.
And continuing to dwell on that. Yes, we need, it's just like when you are dealing with emotions and you're mad about something, you got to honor that. You got to move through that shit. You got to spend some time dealing with the being pissed off before you can then move on. You know,
Right.
I'm at a point that I'm like, I've acknowledged it. I'm absolutely with, you know, so many different things. I completely agree. I'm also looking at what can we do about how we can get to where we want to be. That to me is where I'm at.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And I think that's the goal, is to get as many of us there, right? That's the movement, is to have us all, you know, have this. Thank you. Thank you, Megan.
Yes.
Yeah, we all deserve it all. Whatever we want, we deserve, right? But if the Maria's commentary and is, you know, if we are all looking through a lens of love,
yeah,
the world will be a significantly better place.
Yep. I'm going to go up. So forgiveness and reconciliation are huge as we are ready to take those steps towards each other, listening and coming to terms with how our past actions and our inherited ancestral actions have impacted each other. Yes. So it's the acknowledging those things that have happened. And I'm happy to support these conversations through shamanic work. So this is Megan. So I know her profile isn't showing up. So if you guys go to LinkedIn and you want to chat with her, she also helps people with ancestral sort of past things that have happened with their ancestors, and understanding how even your ancestors are impacting you today in your current life.
Yeah, Megan's title is, she calls herself a shamanic accountant, which I think is just so cool. But, you know, there are so many new, some of them aren't necessarily new, but they're just being brought more forward into the current views, I guess I would say. But there's so many neat types of therapies out there that can help you look backward or forward through a lens of love to understand what wisdom is there from your past, whether it's ancestral or it's a past life regression. But this oneness comes from a quantum philosophy, right? You know, the philosophy, the quantum physics behind all of the universe is there. It's real science. It's actual science, and it's just really cool that when you can take a look at science and lead it and see a direct path with evidence, an evidential path towards love, right? Like love is this nebulous thing that we can't see. But if you look at the science behind oneness, it's all there. There's a direct path. That's so freaking cool in my mind.
Yeah. And as we start to look at these types of things, there are different things that we can even look at that we can point to. So as an example, one of the things that I have started to do as I have individuals that are dealing with things. I did this with my neighbor. Her son has lymphoma, and it was just diagnosed. And so I sent out, they had a group, and I was like, hey, you know, as he was starting to go in, you know, I sent a prayer or a meditation for people. And I was like, if we could collectively do this all at 7:30 in the morning as he's starting to go in. It's things like that, that when we look at energy, the more energy we have and people focused on the same thing, and when we do it also at the same time, we really can have an impact. So even with this group, so for example, maybe we should start a group page or, things like that where, us as a collective, we are starting that ripple effect. So as people are needing something at a particular time, if someone is needing to be meditated over, prayed over, things like that, we can collectively help them, to have the universe concentrate on them. That's really the power and the things that can be done. And really, when we look at things, think about the people you surround yourself with. I have been very intentional over the past several years on the people that I'm letting in my circle. Like I am continuing to look for people with particular types of vibes, people that are going beyond where it is that a lot of other society or social media is taking them. I've been trying to be very specific in the vibe that I'm wanting to have around me, because the more you try to do that and look at from it an energy perspective, then the more that each of you can then impact other people, and the more that ripple effect happens. So, but really it starts with community. It starts with building a community. And that's why with what we're wanting to do, we're wanting to continue to build a movement. And we know that eventually this will continue to have the ripple effect with everybody involved. So I would like to also encourage everyone, share this. We are seeing more and more people that are, continue to be impacted, and even people that aren't even speaking up, other people that are like, oh yeah, I've been watching, your stuff, or I've seen your stuff. So, us as a group, we can continue to grow together. And really, we're going to need that as we continue to move forward, is having that community that we're going to be able to rely upon.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this comment from Maria. It is actual science. She learned the other day that the heart contains neurons, and she thought that was rad science. The heart is actually the most powerful emitter of electromagnetic energy that is in your body. But there's all this amazing science and research out there. Harvard is actually studying right now. It's not yet exposed to the public, but they're studying the fact that there was, they had measurements of the electromagnetic fields around the Earth. And at the time of 9/11, those magnetic fields went bonkers. And their philosophy, or their theory on this, that they are researching and will hopefully someday, bring forward, is that it was actually our emotions, our human emotions, that were affecting the entire Earth's electromagnetic fields, because of the gravity felt that day, right, when we all were watching that devastating tragedy. And then there's all sorts of other research out there. If you look into it, it's so cool that they've all their science that they've been able to see, like solar patterns. When they've seen sunspots, they can measure how many sunspots, and that's an indicator of how much solar energy was emitting. And there's direct correlation between huge worldwide events like wars that were starting, and all sorts of other like big things that were starting, and there were these huge peaks in solar energy around that time. That's human emotion literally being connected to the science behind what is driving our entire universe. So when we think about oneness, that connection between science and atoms and matter, to our own emotions, how can we not feel that we are all woven together?
Yeah, I love that. And when I think back on 9/11, everybody had a particular feeling of devastation. What I also remember was how amazing and nice people were the days following. Like it made you self-reflect on the day to day, and it made you reflect on your life. It made you reflect upon how you were treating other people as well. And so we can do that, but we can do that with intention each day, not just when those types of things happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I would like to leave people with is a question. What ripple effects have you seen in your own life? And I would like to add to that, how else can you impact others? What is it that you can do to be able to help with the ripple effects in your own life? And so as we
Something
start,
new that you haven't done before.
yeah.
What are you going to do moving forward?
Yeah, so that's our challenge to you, is to think about this. Come back on when Cate and I do our vulnerable show. We're going to bring this question back and we want to hear from you. So what are the things, ripple effects that you've seen in your own life, but also what are you going to do to help with the ripple effects and help with the law of oneness for people to feel that connection and impact the world?
Yeah, would love to hear that. And we're having our next show will be guest Jen Lacey to talk about ripple effects and what she literally did in a single corporation. Then we're going to have our panel come on to talk about oneness, and then we will have that vulnerability show. So the shows in between, please let them inspire you as you are thinking about how you will come back to us in about 3 weeks and chat about what the ripple effects are that we can all participate in.
Awesome. Well, I have enjoyed this conversation today. And Cate, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you for the great interaction today. I just love that we're continuing to grow as a group. And I'm looking forward to continuing that.
Yep, me too. Go on and have yourselves a badass rest of your Friday weekend, badass week, and we will see you here next week at the same time.